All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another live stream. I have the Chief back on the channel here. We are going to be talking about news just came out that the Marvels reportedly have a surprising connection to Avengers, the King Dynasty, and it's stemming from Miss Marvel. So, before we jump into everything, Fabian, I gotta know, man. Hearing anything about the Marvels, how do you feel? What do you think? What were your thoughts of this movie before you found out this news?
Beforehand, I'm pretty excited just because I feel like Brie Larson hasn't gotten the opportunity to flesh out her character the way she should have by now. I know they were hyping up her character in Endgame for her to be like a pretty big role in it, but she didn't end up being that big role. I know a lot of people, myself included, thought she was going to be a big like she was going to be right there the entire movie with the other original six Avengers, just because of all the promotions, all the trailers. Um, but we didn't really get that, so we still haven't got much of her other than a post-credit scene, some scenes in Endgame, and her own solo movie. Which a lot of people weren't feeling the story in that, but I think
Yeah,
for the most part, everybody likes her in the role as the character. For the most part, I'm not going to include trolls on that. Um, Monica Rambeau is something that we're really excited to see. She was a great character without powers in WandaVision.
100%.
And then Miss Marvel was a great character overall, but she's still on her training wheels. We got a lot to figure out with her. So hopefully she can learn something from the both of them and they can all learn a little something from each other. So that's the exciting dynamic about it. The thing that it kind of keeps me away from it being exciting though is just kind of the hit or miss on some of the quality. Not that I didn't like Phase 4, but there were highs and lows obviously in Phase 4. That movie's kind of is a red flag to me in the sense that it might be in that same realm that will disappoint people or cause people on the
100%.
internet to go wild. So that's kind of where I was
100%.
sitting with the film beforehand.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a perfect storm of if you take what people were on the fence about with anything in the Infinity Saga, a lot of people, Captain Marvel is a hot topic. And it's weird because even for me thinking about the Marvels, I think you brought it up like just a few moments ago. It's like it's kind of a good dynamic and a good blend of characters, though. Like Captain Marvel is like the OP character. Like when she showed up and blasted through Thanos' ship, you were just like, okay, like finally someone's here. And then she's taken on him. Yeah, she got rocked by the Power Stone, but still, like when she shows up, you're assuming there's a chance for victory. And then the exciting part of Monica, who character who's built without powers, that was huge to me. And then you have Miss Marvel, who is a very organic, and I felt in her show, like I was fanboying and fangirling out like just as much as she was in that. So like it's a weird connection that I have with this, but I kind of am hesitant to go all in because I think this movie is going to have a lot of negativity attached to it. And I hate to say that because I don't want anything to be taken away, but that's how I felt. And then today happened. And everyone's like, who knows where everything's going. It's been a hot topic button for me, as you know, of just is it more, is it less, what are we going to get, what's the quality of the content going to be. And before I deliver the news, did you feel that Phase 4 was connected to the greater story that is coming, that is King Dynasty and Secret Wars?
Not everything to the greater story, but things were connected in a way where you had them in separate lanes. You got your like street level stuff that could easily interact with each other. You could fit in that realm. You had like the political, socio-political stuff like Wakanda Forever, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then you had the multiversal stuff. No Way Home, Loki, Multiverse of Madness. We had three different real focuses throughout all of Phase 4, and they didn't all mesh together. So obviously the multiversal stuff is helping us get there, and they were just dropping little breadcrumbs for us. But that's about it. I mean, we didn't get much more than that about where we were going from here. It looks like we're going to start out with a bang with Ant-Man and the Wasp, but that was maybe going to be a Phase 4 movie before they drew the line in the sand and said,
Yeah.
this is now going to be our phase 5. So, yeah, no. Ultimately, when you only have a few amount of projects dedicated to the multiverse idea, phase 4 didn't do that. They didn't do
Right.
enough of that.
And that for me was where I was at on this. The big issue that I just could not scratch was, what is this? Before they came out and did the whole thing, I think it was what? Was it San Diego Comic Con or was it D23? I think it was Comic Con where they threw out the Multiversal Saga label.
It was San Diego, where they drew the line in the sand. They said this.
Yes, yes,
They
yes, yes.
labeled what we were getting. They gave us all the teases that we wanted. We got to see what direction we were finally actually going.
Which felt good. And then we get Doctor Strange, like you said, No Way Home, like it's just like these little breadcrumbs. And then today we get, in heavy spoilers there in the Insider, they shared an MCU rumor that, and if you don't want to hear this rumor, back out now. But heavy spoilers shared an MCU rumor that explains how the Marvels will tie into the multiverse saga in a way that sets the stage for Kang Dynasty. The report claims that there are a lot of movies that are going to have a big push to connect the multiverse saga in a way that most will not initially realize. Captain Marvel, so technically Captain Marvel 2, will be one of these, as Kamala Khan's bangles from Miss Marvel have the ability to pull things across from other dimensions, as was demonstrated by the clandestines coming from the Noor dimension. Not only will the bangles have the ability to pull characters and resources from across the multiverse, but they will reportedly also trigger an incursion in the Marvels that will lead to bigger things, as the MCU's multiverse saga culminates in Avengers 5 and 6, Kang Dynasty, and Secret Wars. So I want to unpack that, because for me, when I read that, I just started grinning. And I'm like, okay, you got to think like that the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania trailer, everyone starts pulling stuff together and they're like, okay, we have the 10 rings, we have King Tech, and then whatever they're going to call it, and then we have Kamala's Bengals. Like, those things have to be connected in some way. But in my head, I'm like, well, someone's going to steal those from her. Someone's going to get it from her. I really wasn't expecting this additional layer to be, they have the ability to pull characters and resources from across the multiverse, ultimately leading to an incursion. Like, to me, that's big.
That leads all the way back to the original breadcrumb in Multiverse of Madness. When I first heard Reed Richards say the word incursion, like I had already read the storyline that people were theorizing this was going to be about, but that word alone confirmed it.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hickman's run on Avengers, New Avengers, all the way up to Secret Wars, and even his Fantastic Four run, incursions were a big deal. And when I saw that, I could not help from grin ear to ear. I really was happy to hear that, because I was like, okay, Secret Wars.
Yeah.
That's it. We're
Yeah.
getting Secret Wars. And now to hear this as a rumor for what absolutely makes sense for Kamala's Bengal, because the way that I feel like it works is that the Noor dimension that they're talking about, and this is just my own personal theory, is that the Noor dimension is actually the negative zone.
Okay.
And the way that she's pulling things is that, yes, it's another dimension, but it can travel along the line of the multiverse as well. She can travel faster to different points in space and time and pull things out of that different space and time, because it's like a shortcut. You can travel, you could go into the negative zone and then end up, say I was here in my home and then I want to go to Vegas. Boom, just travel, shortcut through the negative zone. That is exactly what I feel like is, if she could control it, that is, I feel like that's what she's going to be able to do. But she probably won't be able to control it, and she's going to mess up, and that's going to cause the incursion.
Yeah. Because you even think, too, of like, at the end of her post-credit or mid-credit, whatever you want to call it, scene at the end of Miss Marvel, when she switched places with Captain Marvel. For me, I wasn't thinking of pulling outside or from other dimensions or from the multiverse, simply because I thought that was a 616 switch. She was just in one space in 616 and she just swapped with her. But having that shortcut, having that ability, I mean, who Do we know who the villain is going to be in the Marvels?
I could have sworn somebody had mentioned. I think we were just gonna continue on with the Kree Scroll War, and
Yeah,
I think it's very hinging upon what happens in Secret Invasion because we have to keep up status with what was going on with the scrolls.
right.
But otherwise, I don't know who else could be the big bad besides the Kree. I'm sure they got some unfinished business with her because she's been busy. I mean, we didn't see her that much in Endgame, so and she's been busy since the events of her first movie, going into Endgame and throughout Endgame. There's been a large gap between the '90s, then the events of like a little bit after Infinity War, and then the
Hmm.
5 year gap between um, Infinity War and Endgame when everybody got snapped. She's been up to something out there doing,
Yeah,
maybe Guardians level stuff or more. So who knows whose door she's been knocking and who she's been making angry.
man, the excitement level is tripled, in my opinion. But I don't want that to take away from the movie. But it makes me more excited to see the movie because that Secret Wars connection. What has she been doing? What is the secret of what's going on with the now? If are they going? Do you think that the MCU would position the negative zone kind of like within the quantum realm? It's working that same way. It's a pocket that's somewhere in there, or do you think they'll still consider that
So as
separate?
far as
Because
I understand it, it's supposed to be a separate thing, like a whole other dimension, like just like literally, it's just like ground zero basically for what I would imagine be the multiverse like highway. Like it's kind of like the center of everything, from my understanding. I could be wrong. Someone in the comments tell me. Um, but I don't think it's the same as the quantum realm because that has more to do with like the microverse and stuff like that.
okay, I'm curious because I have a couple thoughts that popped in my head. What is worst case scenario? Because this whole time I'm thinking, King wants these Bengals. If they have the power to do this, and he gets them, can he use them in the same way?
I'd imagine he'd know automatically how to do it because he'd have the tech compatible to control it, and he could pull whatever he needs at any time. It might be the way he controls his chair
Yeah,
to be able to travel
yeah.
wherever he needs to.
Because part of me was thinking too, when they go back to the Ant Man Quantumania, when he's like dropping that whatever that light ball or energy source into that's machine or whatever that might be. I'm not sure exactly what that is. Part of me felt like that was like part of that flashback of someone telling his story, and this is what he did. This is how he became who he was, and for whatever reason, that's broken, shattered. Someone they had to harness it. They took pieces from it, and exactly, but the bangles and the rings are essentially what that might be. That power source for his chair, but that would make a lot of sense. I don't know if it'd be the traditional sense of like they're just sticking him somewhere. Like, does he have to wear them? Are they placed in something?
I feel like the rings would go somewhere, like they would be like a key to something,
Hmm.
whereas the bangle is something you have to wear. So why would you need 10 of them? Like why would you need that on
Yeah,
your person? Um, but I could see Marvel mixing up a lot of the ideas that
yeah,
have come across in the comics and making it a brand new thing. It's not unheard of for the MCU. I mean, ultimately, all we really want is for them to be somewhat faithful to the comics. Comic accuracy isn't the most important thing, but at least
yeah.
somewhat faithful to the source is appreciated.
Interesting, man. I foresee. Well, a follow up question to that. Does this make you want to see more of Miss Marvel?
Me personally, I want to see
And
her everywhere. I want to see her in as many projects as we can before she is done being in the MCU because I mean it's gonna be that day is coming for everybody that's ever been
yeah,
casted in there.
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Everybody else though, I don't know how the internet really feels about her character individually. Some people because the show wasn't that good to them, that means she wasn't that good to them.
Right.
So I don't want to see more of that character. She was annoying. She was just a child. Like, I mean, yeah, that's her character.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see people complaining about that with Peter Parker. So I don't know.
I still will. I'll take this to the grave. Anyone who doesn't or who likes Spider-Man and Peter Parker, I don't know how they did not like Kamala Khan in this Marvel.
I don't either.
That's
It's the
just
same
me.
thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean,
I
yeah, like there's really no two ways about it. Like, especially it's even more evident in the comics. I feel like because they changed her power set in this, so it's more like an ancestral thing.
yeah.
Whereas in the comics, she's an inhuman, so she kind of just has this stumbled upon her the same way that the spider bite is stumbled upon Peter. The only difference is she has a race of people to fall back on if she wants to.
Now refresh my memory on that. Are the clandestines all mutants
The
or
who?
no? The
The
clandestines?
Inhumans?
No. No,
Oh,
in MCU Marvel, whatever.
oh, okay. You mean like all the people that were from
Yes, yes,
the Nor or whatever?
yes, from the Nord dimension, right?
I don't think so, because I think something. I remember some dialogue saying that she was unique in a certain sense.
And it was once she put the bangles on that her powers were activated.
Right. And I think they mentioned that she may not even need the bangles to activate those powers. Eventually, it's more
Mm.
like an assist.
Right, right, right. I'm just trying to just thinking of like all these thoughts run in my head. I'm like, okay, well, we saw the hand that the bangle was taken off of. It was blue. Everyone's saying it was someone who's Kree. We get her power activation. Yes, can she use her powers without it? There's a good chance. She's essentially going to be put back into that storyline with other Kree that we really don't know what's going on. What kind of scrolls are we going to get? Then, if it's something that Kang wants, if it's people that she can pull, like, is it possible? Because we know that we're getting, well, we don't know, but there's another rumor out there, potential spoiler for anyone watching, that Mobius and the TVA are going to have something to do with Deadpool 3, Deadpool, and we know that Hugh Jackman's Wolverine is going to be in that as well. So I'm starting to see like we're here, like in this bucket, we have mutants, we have King, we have Loki, we have Ant-Man, Quantumania, we have Multiverse of Madness incursions, potentially Doctor Strange, Clea. I just think that this is doing a good job, and I wholeheartedly believe this. When it comes to Secret Wars, not everyone is going to be in the same place, like we saw with the big battle for Endgame. I think everyone's going to have their own version of a big bad in different areas, whether it's a different dimension or at the end of this, I mean, maybe on a new 616.
It's a tough call. The only thing that I will say is that we have these articles now with the idea that they're going to be focusing more on quantity over quality or quality over quantity going
Mm-hmm.
forward. But they're not canceling any of these projects. Like
That's
the only one that I could see not making it is Agatha, but like I mean they're already publicly promoting that. Like Agatha's
yeah,
been on like talk shows, like or the actress has been on talk shows, like talking about, oh yeah, I got my own show. Aubrey Plaza's been talking about it. So I doubt that's getting axed as like out of the blue that one is as an announcement.
yeah.
I think the plan always was you're gonna get a big slew of stuff because we're resetting a new phase. This phase is phase one meets phase four. Like we have to both introduce new and continue stories at the same time. It's a tough challenge. So it's a
With
little dicey.
expectation.
Exactly. So I think the plan is becoming more evident to us that things are going to have those connections that people were complaining about that weren't existed before. So now we have this rumor. We got the TVA rumor. Who knows how crazy Loki season 2 is going to be because of the whole sacred timeline is just out,
Yeah,
blown out of the water. We're going to get to see a lot more crazy stuff. And the quantity over quality thing, I feel like, or quality over quantity thing. Sorry, to how many words begin with Q, and we got to make two of them sound pretty close to each other. Where I don't think that that's even true. I feel like they always were going in that direction. Because I mean, you look at the amount of projects that they have. There's not as many as Phase 4. At least that's what it looks like to me.
Right.
They could announce more, slot in a few more things, but it seems like they've fine-tuned everything to be in these last two phases, and then anything else is going to be leftovers for phase 8, 9, 10.
And I mean, I feel like I've been vocal within our own circle of that same thing of I don't think that they would reduce the amount of projects that are thrown out there. But just like this happens, like we're getting this news. They've thrown everything into the bucket, and now we're starting to sort it out. And to me, that's okay because we just came off one of the greatest. I mean, we just watched something that was a whole Infinity Saga that was pieced together, and that's going to take you days to get through days. Like that is cinematic gold, and they're trying new things. And I'm not going to ding them for having Disney Plus shows. We all know how we feel about She-Hulk and those types of things. And I don't want to continue on with those conversations, but we know what that looks like moving forward. And you've always said this from the get-go, and I've chewed on that every single week and every time we have one of these conversations. Special presentations, when done right, are fantastic, but there's still possibility that they don't hit. The Guardians Holiday Special wasn't anything that anyone's going to throw on the top of their list and say, this is the greatest thing Marvel Studios has ever done.
Hey, my 5-year-old thinks so. He's watched it many times. I'm over here like, all right, man. You want to watch the actual Guardians movie? No, I want to see them. I want to see Mantis jump around. I love Mantis. I'm like, all right, sure.
Fun fact: I did rewatch it the other night. Last night.
I think he's up to like 15 rewatches, man. He really likes it. Oh, there he is.
This is my RIP. RIP popped up. I was like, I don't have a Drax. I really don't like Drax that much. And I'm like, you know what?
I don't mind it. It's just there were some missed opportunities there. Because like even in Guardians 1, he mentioned, oh, I have to kill Thanos. Ronan was just working for Thanos. Thanos was the real reason my family's dead, but he never even did anything about it. But back to the topic at hand, I guess.
Well, even with that though, is once they finally got their stride in a lot of these shows, like Guardian was a one-off initially. You're just like, whoa, who are the Guardians? Avengers, Iron Man, like any phase 1 character was, we didn't question why they were chosen. For the most part, I think most people were, this is awesome. And then Avengers 1 comes out, you're just like, okay, like I'm excited. Where's it going to go? You get a new introduction. Who's going to be next? Who's going to be next? Who's going to be next? But now we get into phase 4 and we're getting characters and people are like, that's not the character that should have been in here. Not to say that that didn't happen in phase 3. I think once we got a little bit deeper in things and we learned more of the source.
I think for a lot of people, it's the knee-jerk because like when you're watching the Infinity Saga, who's being added to the roster? What's the next addition? We're gonna have a real massive team. I'd love to see all these characters in the same place. Now it's who's replacing this roster. Do I like these replacements? It's not as exciting to have replacements because like even after Age of Ultron, things were kind of like bleak a little bit at the end of that movie because Iron Man seemed like he was done. Like Tony seemed like he was done. Thor looked like he was going to go on his own way. You had the new Avengers right afterwards. That roster was okay. Like, I mean, it had like the backups. It had like Rhodey backup, Sam the backup for Cap. You had Black Widow, who's just she's an OG, but I mean, you got your two powerhouses with Scarlet Witch and Vision, but it was a weird lineup. You didn't have Hulk,
Yeah.
so you're left with that final scene of Age of Ultron and wondering, am I going to get to see all these characters again? Even after Civil War, am I going to get to see the Avengers all together again? In Infinity War, we still didn't get to see all the Avengers together again. Captain
Right.
America, he's not even Captain America in the movie. He was barely in the movie.
In to that point, even think about how many people are taking to the keyboards and saying, "Oh, I hope we get Iron Man." Like, how many people really wanted to see an Iron Man character? At that point, it was Tom Cruise was the rumor, but the fact that Robert Downey leaves all these little things, he's talking about the MCU more. Like, he snapped, he's gone. That character is out, but people still want to see that character. People still want to see Chris Evans on screen. So that's exactly it. Like, it feels unfinished. I think that was a point. I don't think it was supposed to be complete.
It feels unfinished because it's just like those are two of the biggest characters in all of Marvel's history in comics, cartoons, everything. And to not get to see them run around with the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, more
Yes.
of a Spider-Man that has been developed. Like that was just like a he was in a good suit, right? But that was, in all actuality, that was homemade suit Spider-Man that they fought.
Mm-hmm.
That most of them got to see with them. Even when he had the Iron Spider suit, he was barely Spider-Man.
Right.
So to not get to see them bounce off of Reed Richards, bounce off of Spider-Man, bounce off of Wolverine, Gambit, Charles Xavier, like it's something that we're missing a piece of the pie here, you know. And real life circumstances is what prevented all that, but
Sure.
it's just it's a little sad how late we were to the party on that. But that's part of why people have like this animosity towards the future of Marvel, and they want as much connectivity as they can, and they want to reach those limits, those heights as
Yeah.
Endgame and as the Infinity Saga as a whole, is because that stuff was revered and loved, and people just generally don't like change. Like statistically, stuff that tries to venture outside the norm is not successful.
100%.
In any form of media, you make a spin-off show, a sequel show, you make a spin-off comic, you make a spin-off video game, you do a video game that isn't like the traditional format of a game, it's not going to do as well as the one that people have been eating every year. Pokemon,
Yes.
people eat that up every year. Call of Duty, people eat it up every year. As soon as they make some weird spin-off, it doesn't make as much money. As soon as they make more changes, it doesn't make as much money. License
No.
more. Loki from Loki is a variant.
Loki from Loki is definitely a variant. But dude, I will go back. I mean, in this case with these stories, in what we've gotten, we I think we need more stories. It's a fine line because I think for a lot of people, what are you spending your time on? Right? Are you going to dedicate 2.5 months, 3 months? Like, look when we get Daredevil Born Again, 18 episodes. Like this is going to be going on for 2 seasons. Like literally, I don't know when they're going to start
It's
it,
going
but
to be almost the length of 2 Netflix seasons.
right.
Like you got a Netflix season and a half there.
That's a lot.
Granted, the episodes might be shorter.
True. I don't know.
I prefer each episode to be as fleshed out as they possibly can.
Yes.
And I want a 45-minute episode to feel like a 20-minute episode. Like,
and I think
that's what makes for good TV.
That's what's been missing. I think that's what's been missing with some of these Disney Plus shows where in the beginning, you know what? I think the only one that I could truly honestly say that I got caught up in where it flew by for me was Moon Knight.
Yeah. I rewatched it because my wife hadn't seen most of the beginning parts of it,
Yeah.
and I rewatched it with her, and I was like, "Dang, this really flies by."
Mm-hmm.
I felt like there was almost not a moment wasted. There was just some parts of it where like the CGI hippo. I've already expressed this, but CGI hippo, the little afterlife world, just got kind of that dragged on a little bit for me,
Well,
especially
sure.
for like how the finale happened. But the finale, everything else, it's fine. It's still a great show.
Yeah.
There's not too much to complain about.
Right.
I don't see how people put it like extremely low on their list. Like the performances are fantastic.
No, I don't. But I think that's a lot of Phase 4. It's just different. I don't know. I've said this before. If you're someone who's watching and you saw one of the previous videos, I wholeheartedly, up until I would say in between Multiverse of Madness and Love and Thunder, I very much was heavily critical of Phase 4. I thought it was one of the worst phases. I was upset almost at every piece of content that came out, and they weren't delivering what I had wanted from the show. And a lot of that stems with the overarching cohesive aspects to what I've come to know Marvel Studios is and does. And there were just so many question marks, but I had no patience. But I was watching tons of other things. And once I kind of took things as they were, I did a nice reset after Miss Marvel. I actually binged Miss Marvel. I did not watch it weekly. I could not stop playing the next episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And that change just had to be made. Now, did I like watching 4 hours or 3 hours or whatever it came out to be of Miss Marvel? I mean, personally, I did. I thought it was
I think
unique.
it's an easier binge.
Yes, but it's hard to. Would you want to be someone who binges knowing that every episode is coming out, knowing that you're going to most likely be spoiled in a show? Like, would you stock up 18 episodes of Daredevil, 18 weeks of Daredevil?
That one, no. That one's like I get up at 2 a.m. and watch it immediately. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just you. That's a character that's already existed, and you're just kind of curious how they're gonna make him exist now. Like, is the
Yes.
other stuff canon? What are you gonna acknowledge? What are you not gonna acknowledge? Um, I don't know. Like something crazy. I'm not crazy about Agatha, but something crazy could happen in that show.
Sure.
So I'm gonna still watch it week by week.
Yes.
Like that's just how it has to be. But I'm just saying, like, if upon a rewatch, you might have a better experience with a character and their time spent on the show. And I mean, we've talked about in the past how the character develops in the future
Mm,
will affect how you view the original project.
100%.
Captain America: The First Avenger.
Yep.
Didn't really care for it when it came out.
Yep.
Now he's developed and had his entire arc. It feels like a pivotal part of his story, and it hits different
Right.
now that you know the Age of Ultron. That movie felt like a mess and uncertainty for the future for what was going to happen. Now you know where it leads.
Yep.
It feels a lot better to view as a part of the whole experience. So maybe that stuff will happen for Ms. Marvel. I don't know if
Sure.
that's ever going to happen for She-Hulk because her stuff is a completely different ballgame as a form of media
Yeah.
for the entire MCU.
I don't know if that's going to happen. I do think like a Falcon and Winter Soldier will be a really good one. I think that one has.
They had a lot of good action.
It
I
did.
I recently rewatched I didn't rewatch the show, but I saw some clips on
Yeah.
TikTok.
Yeah.
It was actually I was like, man, I really forgot about this. Like this is actually
Dude.
it hits pretty
That,
hard. I remember the bad though, unfortunately.
if they can, I actually kind of hope they do a what if version of that. I'm just curious to see what else they could have came up with that. I mean, I think it's kind of open ended. What if Bucky got the shield instead of Sam or something like that? But that one, it had good action, and actually, I went back through. I think it was on YouTube, and I went through just kind of like, oh, that's exactly why for the fights, the best fights of Phase 4. And there was like this 20-minute long YouTube clip that I just sat there and watched. And I forgot how much I really liked and how emotional that scene was when Falcon and Bucky were fighting John Walker in that warehouse for the shield. And like they all three of them were going at it, and John Walker was holding his own for the most part. And there were a lot of things that I did like about that. Yeah, not so many things, but I think that this all will help Phase 5 and Phase 6 and make it that much more enjoyable. Which is why I always will come back and say I don't think they should have got rid of anything. I probably wouldn't have done anything different because if they do every single thing at the quality, let's just say for the sake of it, they just give you the whole Krabby Patty formula every single time, and it is just perfect, perfect, perfect. As time goes on, there is no way, even for the MCU and Marvel Studios, there is no way that people are going to keep showing up and giving every single dollar that they have. Wow, this is great. It's impossible. There's no way that's going to happen.
Right. And ironically, I saw a video the other day where someone was like promoting that article where they were going to, less is more, quantity or quality over quantity. There we go again. And they were just talking about how they were just needing to focus more on producing better content. And I feel like there is all good content in Phase 4. It just depends who you are.
Yeah.
Like I saw some people in the comment section basically saying the worst phase ever, period. Like, is it though? Like, it's just divisive. It's really, really divisive. Everyone's lists are so different.
So different.
Because they have so many different tastes. You know how many people have been surprised to see have She-Hulk at the top, close to the top of their rankings, just because they were a comic book reader and they liked that they were faithful to the comics and it was comic accurate for the most part.
I found out a lot of that because of you, and even my shout out to the world of algorithms. I've been getting a lot more people who are doing some comic book reviews or comic book MCU comparisons and those things. And I don't know if I've personally come across someone who has done a video like that has not praised She-Hulk for its accuracy.
And to a lot of other people's effect, like if you haven't read the comics and you aren't like really trying to, it's basically like a gag show. It's straight up just a gag sitcom. Really nothing is supposed to be taken seriously in it almost at any time. Occasionally it will, but it's going to just completely rip the rug right under you from those moments.
Yeah.
To subvert the expectations for humor's sake. But you have stuff like that where people appreciate it because it's comic accurate. There's people that read comics that don't like the She-Hulk comics. They're not going to like the She-Hulk show. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like it's not really for you. That there's things that are like good to some people and some that are not. I feel like we had such a good status quo for everything all the way up to this point. And to really sum up my point about this is everything is super divisive about Phase 4, and we had all types of different rankings, but everybody's prime bread and butter, regardless of how many people are trying to like drag it through the mud now for out of nowhere because it's a trend. No Way Home follows the formula.
Yes.
To a T still. Yes. And which one is on everybody's list as either the top spot or at least the top 3?
Yes.
People will constantly, they don't know what they want. They don't know what they want. They will eat up anything that they are comfortable with because it's already what they are used to. And anything else is just like, I don't know about this. That's a little bit too different for me. Sam Raimi's style is a little bit too different for me.
Yeah.
Director of Eternals that's a little out there. That doesn't feel like a Marvel movie. That Thor: Love and Thunder. I don't know. I laughed too many times in that one.
Something's wrong here. I laughed way too much in a superhero movie. Something is wrong.
Out of nowhere, people wanted him to be like this super serious character again. And I don't know what made people miss the Thor 1 and Thor 2 Thor. Maybe I still feel like he was still pretty goofy in some respects in Infinity War. Besides, the "Give me Thanos" line. So before that, I mean,
I forgot about that.
The line with when he was about to turn on the dying star. It's like, the blast will kill you, or only if it kills me. That's exactly what
Yeah,
killing you means. Like,
right.
it's still silly. So they just cranked it up a little bit. And I don't know if that caught people off guard, if people have been wanting something else out of the MCU. I feel like I'll ask you this: if TikTok was around for at least Phase 3, do you think people would still be about these movies? Like,
Um,
going release to release, Phase 3.
I'll say this: I think DC would be a lot more relevant if social media, especially TikTok, were the way that they are now. Because I think that would have got a lot more eyes on it. I know it's completely separate, but that's my first knee jerk reaction. But I think to this point, I don't think people would be as high on the Infinity Saga as they were. The Ant-Mans of the world, the Captain Marvel. Like, there was definitely content in there that you could pull out that they'd be like, what is this? Like, I have no clue what's going on here, this or that, or can you believe this? Can you believe that? I just don't think we were at that point yet. I mean, yeah, you had Facebook and you had Instagram, but the deliverables weren't the same as they were once you kind of
Yeah,
got
and
TikTok.
I remember going on Facebook and getting very limited amount of
Yeah.
exposure for people's opinions on these movies.
And
Just
you get
comment sections to reviews. That's
yes, yes. You get a lot more, and I personally think TikTok's comment section is better than Instagram's comment section, and you get a lot more than Facebook ever really fed you. Because Facebook, it was a smaller circle for the most part. Like, you really had to kind of expand a way to see more, like, everyday people. Instagram kind of began that, but it was more of like a poster, a picture of someone standing outside of a poster, their movie poster, and they're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, went to go see Wakanda Forever, and they're like, oh my gosh, me too. Mr. Jalapeno, from the comments to the flesh.
Yes, sir.
What's up, man?
What's up, boss? Just had to hop in. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, plenty of time. We'll,
So,
we'll fling that
where
to
we
you.
at? Where we at?
Fabian just had a good question, if you want to repeat it.
So my question was, we have TikTok now, so a lot of opinions get thrown around. We have a lot more of an indecisive evaluation for Phase 4 as a whole, because I was telling him, I don't know how much you were still listening, but I've seen a lot of like real in tune comic readers really love She-Hulk. They put it up there like really high because of how faithful it was to the comics, how comic accurate it was for the character. Whereas, a lot of people will put it lower. Everybody's Phase 4 lists are really different. So, and it always changes. People's opinions keep fluctuating all the time. And the one constant was always No Way Home was either number one or in the top 3. And that one follows the formula of all the other movies that came before it pretty much to a T. Like, it's like a Marvel movie through and through. Like, it's not trying anything too different. So my question is if TikTok was around Phase 3, do you think we'd have as much of a divisive stretch as we do nowadays?
Ooh, that's a great question. I mean, I think nowadays people want to run with any opportunity to, for like a better word, like roast the new projects, right? Like we've been talking about mid and how everything's labeled as mid nowadays. It's like, I mean, we did the tier list together, and we saw that a lot of the stuff in Phase 4 was either in the A or B tier, and then there wasn't really much in the C, D, or F, or C, D, or was it F tier? I don't even know. That was from Phase 4, so it's like I think people now just have the chance to bash all the new products and new properties, and they forget to realize that Marvel's come a long way. Whether for better or for worse, yeah, there's a few properties that were like, they could have done better with or whatever, but I think at the end of the day, it's not always going to be for everybody.
Yeah.
Like for instance, for me, I'm a ride or die anti She-Hulker. That being said, though, I I wasn't to the point where I'm gonna see it and say this show should have never been made. I'm at the perspective where I'll see it and say, this is how I think the show could have been made better. In my personal opinion. Yeah, I'm not a writer. I don't work for Marvel, and I don't, I'm just spitting what I think could work for me and the majority of people that I think kind of believe along the same lines as me. But at the end of the day, somebody's gonna be like, dude, She-Hulk is a holy grail. So you never know.
And even following up that, I don't know if you heard this, Mr. Jalapeno, beforehand, but we've talked about this too from a rewatchability standpoint. When you're prepping for Infinity War, you're prepping for, or even Civil War, you're prepping for whatever. How many times you go on Disney Plus and they're saying, "All right, Marvel Legends," or not? Is it Legends that's on there? Is that what they call it? The recap one?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it, but I think that's what it is.
I mean, they have things categorized. Like even when Black Panther came out, they're like, see everything that Black Panther's been in. So when you watch from a different perspective, like it is different to view something when you're looking at what is Black Panther doing in Civil War, how did that happen, versus I'm watching Black Panther for the first time, or I'm watching Civil War for the first time, and you're like, who's this guy? Like it's just a different angle that you come from. So I think it's easy for people to say, and not assuming for them, but I think it's easy to say that Phase 4 is the worst phase because there's nothing to elevate it yet. Exactly like you were saying in the beginning of this. When you go back and watch Captain America, right? One of the big things that at least I talk about is, oh, we saw Red Skull. I appreciate Red Skull more. And Zola who's coming back. Like, we have a lot of that, but we remember and we can recall. I did not like that movie in the very beginning. That movie grew on me because I like Steve Rogers as he is now, and that's his origin.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the hard thing of why I say kind of more is more, because as we get these characters out, like, yes, we don't see the future vision, but at the same time, we know how big these sagas are and we know how much content they can pump out. So eventually they're going to flesh it out. Of course we know. Dude, they go to 10-year retreats. Like they have to have at least an outline or a plan of where these people are going to come up. It's just, I think it's just the world we live in where we get fed so much information so quickly. And even the insiders, a lot of these insiders are pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are citing them as their main source because for whatever reason they can and are leaking this stuff. Yeah, gave us a chance to talk tonight. But at the end of the day, it's a constant flow that we've never had before. This was not a conversation. So maybe even to that point in TikTok, could it be the same? Probably. Actually, maybe not, because there's only so much that people can talk about before the next thing would even come out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The only like counter argument that I really have to the more is more argument is that, like I said, I'm not saying don't make She-Hulk. I'm not saying don't make Miss Marvels. I'm not saying don't make the Hawkeyes. Like the stuff that I put at the bottom of my list, it's just at the bottom. It's not like me saying don't make it whatsoever. But to that same token, I think there's certain characters that, at least for my sake, whether it's because the actor deserved it or not, I think there's a better route that they could go in and not put a story out. And like I said, I always come back to Agatha and Vision. So in my eyes, I think if we scrap those off of the table completely, right? Erase them off the whiteboard, then the entire production team that was going to be put onto that, and the actors and the budget and all that, you can use that extra brain power, I guess, and put it into your Lokis, your WandaVisions, your Moon Knights, or whatever you have at the top, and really nail a solid script. Because She-Hulk, in and of itself, I don't hate the character. I hate what they did with her. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what bothers me. And to Fabian's point, it was very comic book accurate to what she does. And people who read the comics are like, dude, this is like page for page, like replication. But I think at the end of the day, at least for me, as much as a fan as I am, dude, I have no inkling in what happens in the comics. And I only know like the real big things. Like Thanos is the guy who snaps. Peter Parker is the guy who climbs on walls and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like I only know that stuff. And for me, when they go that crazy into the breaking the fourth wall and stuff, and to be honest, it wasn't even breaking the fourth wall. Like you know how much I carry weight on the villains, and I think the fact that toxic masculinity and just like gender roles and gender problems was like the main issue in She-Hulk. That's what bothers me. That to me is like writing that I feel like is that woke writing that upsets people. But that's not to say that for me, I'm like, dude, never write She-Hulk again.
Yeah.
Like, just write it differently in my eyes. And if I'm part of the problem, then I guess I'm part of the problem. But I'm not trying to be toxic about it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people that are saying like, oh, the she you. Like, why does everything need to be a woman? Why is this and that? Like, I don't care about that, dude. Man, the more I can see these badass ladies out here, the better. But it's not a problem.
My question to like people that are always like when they see like these like minorities and females like in the forefront of like a lot of these stories now, it's like I don't want to see that. This is woke. This is too much for me. This is not. I don't want any of that woke stuff. I don't want to be a part of that agenda. When would it be okay for you then? When is it going to be okay for a woman to be a superhero? Is it just too much for you all at once? Like, is it too much to have like Latinos, black people, female leads, like all throughout the board, so, like pretty prominent, powerful female supporting cast? Like, it's a reflection of the real world.
Right.
That's all Marvel is. Is like Marvel is always going to be a reflection to how the real world is going on, with obviously the fantastical stuff that they add to it. So I don't know what more people want from that. I don't know what they want us to revert back to. I don't know if that just means I don't want these people. I just want Iron Man and Cap.
Right. That's where I have a problem of like blending the quality, because again, I very much feel that could they edit what we got in phase 4? Do we need as much time that was spent on these characters? Maybe not. And then time will tell for some of these, seeing what future projects we get. But we already have seen that they've made some edits and they're okay pushing things back. They're okay changing things. Armor Wars is a great example. When people tell me that they're not going to make a difference or make a change, there's literal facts out there in articles that are telling you Armor Wars was too big. Something changed. They're taking it off Disney Plus, and it's going to be in theaters. That's a good thing to me. And then also shows them, hey, we're open and willing to make changes to give you the best that we can get. Fantastic Four has been pushed. I'm okay. I don't want them to push anything. I don't want them to cancel anything. I don't want them to do whatever. I want to see it as quickly as I can see it. But if they're going to push things back, there's definitely a reason for it. And I think at the end, yes, it's to make as much money as possible, which the Marvel machine does. But at the same time, it's going to be a better quality film or show. But to that point that you're saying of these female leads, these characters, that's part of what makes me really nervous about the Marvels.
So the nervousness that I feel, and I just thought of this because this listening to fans thing has happened before, because like the whole article, we're gonna focus on quality. This has happened before with another property that they've owned, Star Wars. The Last Jedi was not very well received by fans. Pretty critically okay with a lot of people. I thought the movie it had some hits and misses throughout it. It was okay. What they did in response to that is completely backtrack any bullet points that they had in that Last Jedi movie with the sequel, Rise of Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
That movie felt like they really did listen to the fans, and they were like, "Oh, we're tossing everything out the window. We know you guys didn't like that. We're gonna throw everything Star Wars like that we can. We're gonna make Rey like super powerful. You guys want to see more Jedi stuff?
Yeah.
You guys want to see this, that, and the other. This is the stuff you guys wanted to see, right? You wanted to see more ties to like the old lore. You wanted to see like Palpatine. They threw Palpatine out of nowhere. They threw away Snoke. They threw away a lot of stuff that they were working on in The Last Jedi because they were listening to fans. If it means that they are going to stick to their guns and tell whatever story that they were intending to begin with, do not listen to these Marvel fans. Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, do not listen to any of these trolls on the internet. Do not listen to those mass critic scores, mass reporting on the audience scores for like She-Hulk. Like, this is, you've already done us a great service with the Infinity Saga with 3 great phases. Everything ranked pretty well. We can all die happy.
Yeah.
Whatever the end game goal is with whatever you guys got going on over there in Marvel Studios, do not pull The Last Jedi to the Skywalker. Because if we have an issue where Secret Wars and Kang Dynasty is going to end up being like Rise of Skywalker, the MCU is finished.
I can't see that happening though. I literally can't. I'm not saying that they're not going to make edits in terms of how they push content to people, but I really can't see them just being like, oh my gosh, we're going to lose everything, because I don't feel that way. Now, I know we've had our kind of off-screen conversations about this less is more kind of thing, but really, I just have to stop and think. If that is truthfully the case, and we go back to a schedule like phase 1 or even phase 2, where it's movie heavy and then we get some stories, we've been so conditioned now to assume that every couple months we're getting some sort of Marvel content. I almost would rather see it the other way, just like we talked about 3 or 4 live streams ago. Or even, I think What If had a, say what you want about What If, but tell me that you don't know these characters pretty well. Captain Carter, even King Killmonger that's in there, Doctor Strange Supreme, the Guardians of the Multiverse. Like, you watch that once or twice, and you know what these characters' stories are. And that was told in a small amount of time. Each of them had a dedicated episode. There's 6 character episodes, and then you had 2 Ultron episodes that brought them all together. And you had an overarching narrator, the Watcher. It was a cool story that was told, but I think that they can put some things together to give us some of these lesser characters to where it's not as much of a risk. Overall MCU, to where people are going to feel that the choices that are made are damaging the greater Marvel or the greater cinematic universe. It's possible. And sure, they may do that. And I think eventually they're going to have no choice but to do that once the originals and those that replace the originals are gone. Big question is, once we get the mutants, I'm very, for as nervous as I am for the Marvels, I truthfully do not think that current fandom of the MCU is ready for an entire mutant saga that's dedicated to those storylines. I
can't
just
wait.
don't.
I can't wait for all these kids to be like, what are these woke characters? What are the X-Men? Why are they so woke? They're fighting for mutant rights. What's that? That's just an agenda.
Give me like a 30-second max synopsis overview of the animated series, because you just rewatched it, right? If you can,
Yeah.
if you can.
Oh man, how do people? If anyone's watching this and you don't already know what the X-Men are about and what they've evolved into, and they didn't start out this way. Stan Lee did not create these characters with this in mind initially, but it did evolve into this. Basically, there are a group of known people in hiding, some in the forefront, that are known as mutants that can develop powers that they can control or cannot control and are considered dangerous by normal human beings. And there are two mindsets to fight against this. There are the mindsets that we have to be peaceful and get humans to understand mutant kind so that we can live and coexist with each other. And then there are those that believe in the Homo superior idea of mutants being completely superior and no need for humankind to coexist with. And they wish to eliminate humankind to for the betterment of mutants because they are all powerful. So one wants the right to basically coexist, and the other one wants to right the wrongs that are being done to them. There's a lot of discrimination involved with both groups, whether they are good or bad, or what they intend to do with their powers, whether they are unintentionally using their powers and cause accidents. They are being harassed and bullied and just completely run through the mud. And there's a lot of, like in the X-Men animated series, there's a lot of politics involved with the way that X-Men are, or not even just X-Men, just mutant kind is presented in general. I mean, if you go back and watch the movies from the early 2000s, a lot of politics. The real world exists within the Marvel universe. If you want the real world to be like an afterthought, go watch DC.
This guy.
But even that right there, like, does that not align with what complaints are coming out? Falcon and the Winter Soldier complaints, get that out of here. The Kamala Khan, get that out of here. Like, even the She-Hulk aspect of things, get that out. Like, the biggest things that people are like, no.
They're the same. They're the same things. They're fighting very similar fights, like that have even less of a metaphor in reality. Like even you go into the Registration Act in Civil War. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it didn't like play out throughout the entire rest of the events of the movies after that, but that was just a metaphor for gun control. These people are weapons. They need to be handled. The same thing is going to happen to the X-Men. The whole thing is going to be brought up again. It won't lead to a civil war. It'll be a civil war amongst mutants, just Magneto and Professor X's ideologies.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just always going to be the never-ending battle.
Mr. Jalapeno, I'm gonna throw that over to you because you're not on the toxic end of things by any means. But I'm curious of how you'd feel if that is what comes up now. Does that fall into the category of that's not quality?
I think for me, I try to at least look past face value, right? Like if you look at Ms. Marvel from a toxic standpoint, you're like, okay, it's a Pakistani superhero. Why do we want to see this? She-Hulk, it's a strong female lead. Why do we want to see this? Captain or Sam Wilson as Captain America, Black African American Captain America. Why do we want to see this? If you're looking at that just like that, it becomes very toxic. But I think for me, at least, some of the issues that I have with some of those shows is when the writing, I feel like, kind of forces the argument that they're trying to make. Like, for instance, we've had conversations off camera how I felt like racism really didn't exist in the MCU until Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? Like when he was in, where was he when he was in the streets with Bucky?
In front of Isaac's house.
Yeah.
That was his name, Isaac.
Or Isaiah.
Isaiah.
I don't know. I don't remember what state that was, but
Baltimore is Maryland.
Maryland. Okay. Baltimore. Okay. So when he was out there, and they were like, "We need to see some ID, and we need to do this and that." Like that was very, in my eyes, very woke. Because I was like, we had just come off of the stuff that happened with George Floyd in real life, and like, it was a kind of like rough time to put that kind of stuff in there. And the way I saw it was like previously in the MCU, we had never seen something like that. Like you have Rhodey as like Iron Man's number one guy, never had any example of racism, at least at what we saw. You have Black Panther, you have Nick Fury, you have all of these people of color in the MCU. And it isn't until now that they're like, okay, let's start adding these like stories and dialogues revolving around racism. So that's how I feel like it comes across as unnatural. And same thing like with She-Hulk in that one scene, and I think it was the first episode maybe, when she's like, I know how to control my anger because I get catcalled, I get this and that, I get all of this, and it's like we never saw any of that. And not to like be petty, but old girl's not even going on dates. Who's she getting catcalled by? You know what I'm saying? She's got a terrible dating life,
bro.
So, so okay. Let's be for in all seriousness. No, I feel like those are the things that really bother people because it's like, just show me
Sure.
them experiencing that. You know, like Isaiah Bradley as is it Isaiah?
Yeah.
As Isaiah the older one? Yeah, because Eli Bradley's the son or the grandson or whatever. Isaiah, he experienced racism, right? Like the story that he's told about those experiments that they did on him and him being one of the first super soldiers and how they didn't even like not publicize, but nobody knew the stories of him. That's innate racism to me. And that's naturally in the script. It doesn't feel forced because you can see it throughout that guy's actual experiences. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I think where like the woke culture comes in is when they start to write it like that. Like, just show me, right? Like Namor, he said, I saw my people get persecuted, and this is why we have stayed underwater the whole time. Very subtle, nothing crazy. Didn't say anything about like people of brown skin, people this and that. Like, I felt like it was very relaxed and it didn't come off too aggressive and very agenda driven in
Yeah.
my eyes. So that's kind of like the difference where people could take it to the next step, to the next level.
I hear that, and I get that, and you know, I always use it kind of as an escape. Like when I watch the Marvel stuff, it's I'm getting away from what's happening outside when I come in here and I sit down and I throw my headphones on and I put something on, whatever. But I do think at the same time, this is what's making Marvel a little bit more relatable than what is appealing to a lot more people who feel that I'm never going to put on a suit of armor. I'm never going to be a general in an army. I'm never going to be friends with a billionaire. I'm never going to be Rhodey. But could I walk down the streets of Chicago and feel like Sam felt? That's more believable to me. That's something that I'm just like, man, I kind of felt that. What happened with She-Hulk, I've told you guys stories of that, the way that Jen positioned things, I pulled that from real life, and I'm like, man, I know of people that stuff like that's happened to. I know of stuff that Kamala's gone through. Like Phase 4 has been way more relatable in so many different ways on so many different levels. And for me, I personally, I like those things, and I like that a lot of these directors and showrunners are taking the time to incorporate that in. Like, yes, it is a superhero, but they are still, at the end of the day, real people. Yes, it is possible that an Avenger cannot get a bank loan just because he's an Avenger. So some of those things, for me, I like that they put them in. Do I like Anthony Mackie's acting style? Not particularly, and that may have something to do with it, but I don't know. That's where it,
Clarence.
That's right. But I think that's where the more aspect comes into, because I do believe at the end of the day, DC feels so not supernatural, but it feels so unobtainable. So you're never going to be a Superman. I'm never going to be a Batman. I'm never going to be a Green Lantern, a Martian Manhunter, or anything like that. But could you be one of these Marvel characters? You're getting a lot more maybes than not. If you throw some CGI on me, yeah, I definitely could. But
yeah,
I like those stories. And I think for the first time, I could say this phase has really made me like a story beyond Thanos. I love that story. Love everything about that. I can differ on a few things with it, of course. But that to me was probably one of the best stories that were told outside of Bucky, Cap, and Iron Man and Civil War. Offhand.
Mm-hmm.
So, me personally, again, it's a preference thing. I welcome what they tried to do in Phase 4, and I hope they give it to us, maybe in a little bit different way. But I think that's Marvel, personally.
I think a lot of that stuff, at least with like, you look at the slate that we have, and I think a lot of that stuff is going to just be put a little bit in the back burner. Because
Sure.
like it's naturally going to be there for something like Black Panther. Because like we had a little bit of like hints through Killmonger about how black people were treated in America and why he was rightfully upset that Wakanda wasn't doing anything to help their people throughout the world. Where you look at how Miss Marvel was doing their story, where it was like a culturally based significance. I don't think the Marvels is going to pick up on that. I don't think it's going to continue carrying that baton. I think it'll just be there. Like you'll get her parents, you'll get her little tidbits of what she's like. I think when it comes to character introductions, introducing those bits of culture to start with is what's actually important to get to know them, and then after that you could just let them be. Like, literally, they just want to be. Like that's how you've identified their character, you know what they're about, you know their background. Now they could just exist within the universe and interact with everybody. So I think it was important for a lot of the character introductions to get into that stuff. Now, a lot of those battles are going to still keep going around. Like, I mean, that's pretty much all the X-Men are ever doing.
Right.
I mean, it's been since the 60s. They're still fighting this battle.
Yeah.
It's been interchanged in the comics a little bit, but like, it's a never-ending war for peace. And I mean, it's similar to real life with discrimination. It's like it's never ending.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
you 2 steps forward is 15 steps back. Like,
I think if anything, overall, these stories won't be. I think they're realizing that they can't be as in your face with some of this. I think we may see a slight pullback on that, especially with some of the newer directors and screenwriters who are doing some of these shows. Maybe not. And again, I'm cool with it, but either way, yeah, he's got to hop off. But either way, man, I'm good. I'm good with it. I want this movie to do well. I want this movie to be perceived well. If I have to guess, because everyone goes off Rotten Tomatoes, most likely to say the Marvels. Early prediction, unless something huge happens, and not just a standalone incursion or pull someone in, or like this is how we get Magneto in, or this is how we get Fantastic Four. That'd be kind of crazy. Pulls in Fantastic Four.
I think that's one thing we have to curb with the new phase is how many of these characters we're gonna get. When are we getting the X-Men? How are we getting the X-Men? How are we doing more? How are we is somehow Ant-Man gonna give me the Fantastic Four? Is somehow like I don't know what else. Is Secret Wars gonna give me I don't know, some other random character that people are anticipating.
I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay with character introductions. I just don't think I'll ever go back to a place like where I went with the Illuminati, and I'm like, whoa, we had that whole squad like Fantastic Four. There has to be something. Like when the movie ended, I'm like, does Earth 838 and all those people? They don't want to go after Strange. Like they're just going to be cool with it, and they're like, you wiped out our version of the Avengers essentially, and we're good with it. We're not going to find you. Those things I feel a little about, but they'll do something cool. I just have faith they will. Oh.
Yeah, and ultimately, as far as the rumors that are going around, it feels like things are got to start hitting full swing. I mean, they pretty much have to. Like Phase 5 is the one where they got to start dropping more breadcrumbs,
Yeah.
more hints. I didn't to answer my own question from earlier with the if TikTok was around. I honestly feel like we would have hated on Phase 3 the entire time.
Probably.
Guardians 2 didn't deliver on Thanos stuff. It didn't deliver more cosmic things.
Right.
Spider-Man. You know how many people? It would have been so much worse about how he was Iron Boy Jr.
Yes.
That wasn't a Spider-Man.
Way
That's not my
worse.
Spider-Man.
Let's see what's in here.
We really would have dragged a lot of this stuff through the mud. The only one that maybe would have like been a real big project was Black Panther. Still, I mean, we got Civil War was probably the biggest. Civil War and Black Panther probably the biggest ones. I feel like people would have hated on Ragnarok even back then.
I don't know if Ant-Man and the Wasp would have made it either.
No, Captain Marvel definitely wouldn't even be as tolerated as it is right now.
I mean, you figure that's what? Captain Marvel 1, Ant-Man and the Wasp 2, Spider-Man Homecoming 3, Guardians 2, 4. I mean, that's 4 out of 1, 2, 4 out of 11? Oh, wait, not Homecoming, Far From Home, my fault. But still. Yeah, I mean, leading up to that, I mean, you figure in chronological order, like Civil War, okay, great. Doctor Strange, I think people still would have loved. But then Guardians, Homecoming, Ragnarok, Black Panther, then Infinity War. And then in between that, you would have Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Endgame, Far From Home.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's not a lot on that list that would have been safe from the internet today.
No.
I mean, even to some respects, like I feel like Black Panther, you know, we've been getting the woke agenda script since. I mean, I literally pulled up the first appearance of Miles Morales in, I think he premiered like in 2014, 2013, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 2011, 2012, whatever year he came out. It was a long time ago. He's been around for 10 years or more. And that first issue, the same exact stuff. Because if you guys don't know, they're at the back of issues. You're getting like emails. You know, it used to be letters, handwritten letters back in the day, but now it's emails to the authors giving their opinions on the book of what is going to happen or what their opinion of it is. And everything is like, I can't believe you're going for this woke agenda with a Hispanic black male kid being Spider-Man. Why would you kill off Peter for just to be a part of this agenda? This is too woke for me. And now look at him.
Yep.
Look, video game, animated feature, debated. I find this hard to debate. Probably the best rendition of Spider-Man put to screen so far, in my opinion. He's appeared in a couple of different videos. He's Ultimate Alliance 3, you know, the PlayStation exclusive games.
Yeah.
He is a household name now. Miles Morales is household name.
Yep.
And because you think your comments and your little emails and everything that you're like screaming and shouting about because you don't like care to see somebody else in filling the shoes is going to stop it.
Yeah.
These kids deserve to see somebody else other than the normal, like Peter Parker or whatever.
I agree.
In these suits and costumes, like I don't understand. You see those little reactions to like little girls like seeing themselves in the Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
That's literally all it's for. You could say
Yeah.
that the company is just trying to make money off of, you know, just here, take your pity representation or whatever.
Right.
But like, why have that animosity towards it when the little kids don't have that hatred in their heart?
Exactly.
They are not going to see it that way. They're going to see someone that, hey, I could be that.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, that's the positive. That's the positivity that I take from it rather than the negativity.
Always. At the end of the day, that's exactly how I feel. Exactly how I feel. The kids can relate to it. Even us as adults can relate to it. You feel, because we didn't get this when we were younger. Live action wise, Not really. And if it was kind of 2 seconds on screen, the rest off. It's just not the same. So for me, I think you summed it up perfectly. This phase needs some time. How it grows is how it's going to grow, but at the end of the day, we know these characters. And I'm all about the stories. I know who they're going to be moving forward. I don't need them to take the time in the Marvels to do a Kamala Khan flashback, throw her mom in there, or tell her story of who she is. Yeah, there's going to probably be some funny moments when her mom opens the door or something like that, and she's like, "Who are you?" Right? But that's going to just be funny, and we're going to be like, "Oh, that's very much Miss Marvel." Great. Let's see the next stuff. It's not going to. I don't know. Last thing that I have for you. Back to the beginning. I don't know about this comment, and I am pulling this solely from the direct. Are Incursions the Multiverse Saga's true Infinity Stone replacement? I had to read on and think about that for a second.
Incursions replacing the idea of Infinity Stones? I mean, you're not really collecting incursions. You want to stop the incursions. You want to prevent them from happening.
I was like, are we assembling incursions to make one really big incursion?
No, the incursions aren't what create Battle World, if that's what people think are going to happen. So, like, the planets clashing into each other isn't automatically going to make a new planet. Somebody ends up being responsible for doing that. I don't know if that's going to be Kang or if it's going to be Doctor Doom.
Yes.
Hopefully it's Doctor Doom, but I won't be mad if it's Kang.
So are they thinking like the Fox universe is going to be pulled in? Like somehow they pull in the Sony universe, they pull in all the legacy films and just smash them into 616 and like, mutants are canon. Everyone's canon.
I mean that's tough. Like, oh, is that what you think they mean? That like the incursions are like, collecting these previous universes so that we can say our Marvel marathon just got even bigger.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, I hope those characters as many of them as possible end up in Secret Wars, but I hope they are not around to stay.
Yeah.
The only ones that I feel like should still be safe are like Andrew Garfield, who's still got some gas in the tank, and maybe Tobey Maguire. Maybe we could get a Spider-Man 4. Maybe. Like one that he's older. Like we get to see his relationship like with Mary Jane, stuff like that. I don't know. That as far as the incursions basically being in that mindset that we're just trying to collect the different universes to smash them into ours. No. That's not the overall idea. I mean, sure, if they want to switch it around to make the incursions be like that in the Marvel universe, because the stones work differently in MCU than they do in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a 1-for-1 replica. You're not getting your arm damaged and destroyed or risking your life snapping your fingers.
Right.
Like Thanos was using that thing like it was just like a kid in the candy store in the comics. Like I don't know if people know that, but it was there was little to no danger using it for almost anybody that was somewhat of a strong cosmic being. So like Silver Surfer, Adam Warlock, Thanos. The ones that were kind of risking it were like people like Captain America. Because in the comics, Captain America tries to stop an incursion with the gauntlet and it doesn't work. He could use its power. He's one of the few that can as just a normal human. But the stones itself were not good enough to stop an incursion.
Do you think they try that? Do you think Loki or someone tries that where they're just like open the desk, grab a bunch of different stones and try to snap and it won't work? You know what I always think of this? I always think of this of like Dragon Ball Z, like Frieza. Like Frieza was the number one threat. But that's always like the benchmarker where like the next thing is like, oh, anything Frieza does, it's junk. Trunks shows up, boom, slice, done, bam, blast. And everyone's like, well, now you're the GOAT, you're the strongest guy. And then Goku turns around and he's like, well, no, I'm better than you still. And it's like, okay. like if they're gonna establish like the stones are nothing now, like forget about the stones, forget about Thanos. Like we've moved on to bigger things.
They kind of already did that with Loki though, like where they, at least in that world, that they weren't useful.
Yeah,
but they
yeah.
might solidify it even more. Like just, hey, we're not going to be able to. This is no good. It only works in our world and stuff within our own world.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just those little things, but dude, that's all I got, man. It's good to talk about those things and get those out day of. I like talking about this before I read way too many comments and I don't even know what my own thought was.
Yeah,
like,
a lot of the internet stuff just kind of invades your minds because, like, oh, you kind of have a point,
yeah.
But at the same time, I don't really agree with you.
Yep. I find myself now getting pushed things that I really disagree with. And I don't know why, but as of late, my algorithm is almost 100% of people that I just do not agree with whatsoever. And I follow people that I agree with. Like Straw Hat Goofy, I never see his stuff anymore on my page.
Yeah, he's been having issues. He did post about that his stuff has been like kind of inconsistent. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I like to follow like not follow them, but like I'll revisit their pages just to see, hey, what kind of nonsense are you talking? Just to see like what kind of dumb stuff is coming out of their mouths this week or whatever their idea is, or like what if a video pops up on my feed?
Yeah,
and you really aren't making sense. I'm not gonna go back and forth with someone. I'm not trying to post a bunch of videos on my feed like arguing with someone. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna think you're right anyways. Like you're gonna beat your point into the ground until I'm gonna get tired of it first. I'm sorry. Like that's just ultimately what it's gonna be. I'm gonna make one video and I'm just gonna get tired of it after that.
Yeah. 100%. 100%, man. Well, I appreciate you jumping on. Always great having conversations. Hopefully see you this Sunday for everyone who's watching. Appreciate you guys. Subscribe, like, continue this Marvel conversation. Hopefully get some DC stuff going here shortly. And also follow Fabian's page. Give us a little drop, a little shout out.
Chieftain X72.
And your YouTube.
We're out there.
Give me the YouTube drop.
Oh, the YouTube. Oh,
yeah.
Right. Into the backlog on YouTube. We talk about a variety of topics on there. Trying to drop a lot of different stuff. So most likely, if you like any nerdy media of any kind, you're going to like the conversations that we drop on there. Hopefully we get the ball rolling on a more consistent basis. It'll be different faces all the time. You won't get to see, you won't get the opportunity to get tired of certain faces.
Well, check them out. I've listened to some of their videos that they have. It is fantastic. It's actually my workout sounds.
Oh, nice.
So I'm listening. But appreciate you, man. And we will see you guys in the next one.